you a woman in medicine feeling overwhelmed and disconnected from the personal fulfillment that you desire? You're in the right place. Join Doctors Joanne and Aaron as they rewrite the rules for women in medicine. Let's begin.
In this episode, we are going to continue the theme about issues related to menopause. And I am so excited to introduce our guest today, Kirsten Smith, who is a physical therapist, and she specializes in many things, but one of them is in pelvic floor issues. Kirsten, I'm so intrigued by this topic, and I would bet that not all physical therapists are experts in this or specialize in this. And I would love to hear, how do you weave these issues into your physical therapy practice?
Hi, it's a joy to be here. I'm happy to shed some light on what is the ever-growing pelvic floor therapy realm. So women's health and or pelvic floor therapy and is a wide section of physical therapy. You can see men, women, pediatrics. And so I particularly specialize in female pelvic floor therapy. And there's, from an orthopedic standpoint, so I'm also just an outpatient orthopedic physical therapist. Your pelvic floor is attached to every human being. So I tend to see women who are suffering from stress incontinence, mixed urinary incontinence, which is a combination of stress and urge incontinence, which we can go into detail on, postpartum, prenatal, constipation, pelvic pain, dyspareunia, all the things that you could possibly imagine could go wrong with your pelvic floor, and helping empower women to not have a silent suffering of either pain, urinary leakage, etc.
And we talk about that a lot on this podcast, about suffering in silence and encouraging, especially women in medicine, not to suffer in silence. And I wonder if there's maybe a story that you can share, protecting patient information, of course, or maybe kind of a general story that might help the listener understand what kind of impact you can have when you are seeing individuals for this.
Yeah. So if we think about just quality of life of being able to leave your house and not stress, where is a bathroom? When is the last time I went to the bathroom? Am I going to have to wear a urinary incontinent pad? All of those things can make exiting your house and or participating in a weekend venture or a nice dinner, wearing a nice dress, very stressful for a lot of women. And that can span all the way from, young teens to 85, 90. And I see the span of those age groups. Typically, the women that I see are somewhere between 30 and 70 are probably the average ages. But being able to take someone who's solely dependent on wearing a urinary incontinent pad every day, all day, which is not great for vaginal hygiene, and empowering them to have the tools to be able to at least not wear a pad at home and then eventually not wear a pad out in public. Those are big things on improving quality of life and confidence in just social outings.
Well, you're touching my heart here as a psychiatrist, hearing also how you can help with their overall well-being and mental emotional health if these problems are interfering with so many aspects of their life and the quality of their lives. I know that I hear that with my patients, and even some of our conversations as women with my friends, of that concern of, I don't want to have to be in the car for too many hours, or what if I laugh too hard or I sneeze, and how upsetting that can be. This is very enlightening, and also the wide range of aging that sometimes I hear, I'm too young for this. I shouldn't be having problems. And thank you for the compassion, also saying this could happen at any age, and any age is a good time to get help if needed, which we talk about as well. And that was actually something that I wanted to ask you, because these are very common symptoms, and some, I imagine, come and go, or they're mild. At what point would you recommend someone to see a specialist like yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot of myths around bowel and bladder health and a lot of assumptions of you're a certain age or you've had kids or etc. and that things are normal. So I typically tell my patients, which they're already seeing me, but to tell the world is if you're having leakage of any kind for any reason, it's not normal. It's common, but it's not normal. So females and or males should never be leaking urine involuntarily. Any signs of constipation or pain with emptying your bowels, pain with emptying your bladder, any sort of pain component with vaginal insertion for a medical exam or for intercourse, even just pain during the day that doesn't seem to be associated with any sort of bowel bladder emptying or vaginal insertion. Those are all great reasons to ask more questions and seek help if it's something that you're either ignoring or not happy with or affects your quality of life. And then I think too, just people who are curious. A lot of people, am I doing a Kegel right? Is this normal? There's so many things that and we can talk about it too, of things that you can do at home. It's like so many things that people are unaware of what healthy and common bowel and bladder practices are. So if you're not sure of, am I doing this right? Is this normal? Those are always great reasons to just set up an appointment with a pelvic floor therapist to ensure that there's nothing you can do for a better future.
That is so important. And we heard in episode 66 with Dr. Aoife O'Sullivan, who is an internist and also a menopause expert. She explained that in medicine, they're only teaching from one of the two volumes of medicine, and that's the one, about men, for men, and that the one about women is not being taught, even in medical school. And so many physicians and other healthcare providers may be completely oblivious, maybe not to their own, or not of their own fault, but because it wasn't taught to them. And I would encourage our listener, whether it's for you or your patients or family members, that encouragement to not accept these things as, oh, it's just the way it is. And asking, and if you're not getting the answers that are helpful, go find the next level of specialist. Or if you've talked to your doctor, maybe it's talk to your physical therapist, and keep checking in with your team to find out what is it that you need or what level of expertise may be helpful, because just because one person says, I can't help you, doesn't mean there's maybe not an answer for you out there. So powerful, I think, for our listener to hear. And I wonder, you were mentioning that there can be things that individuals can do at home, maybe only with input from a specialist, but maybe to try at home and see if it helps. I would love to hear from you, Kirsten. What are some of those things our listener can try?
Yeah. So and we could go into, buckets of urinary health, bowel health, sexual health. If we're starting from a really basic urinary health, because with age and postmenopause status, urinary tract infections are fairly common. And an easy thing for us to be doing is normal voiding patterns are every 2 to 4 hours. And I think there's a large myth of like, hey, if you got to go to the bathroom, go, like, don't ever hold it. And it's normal for our bladder to give us a cue at halfway full saying, hey, you might need to go to the bathroom in the next, 30 minutes, but we don't always need to go on that first urge. So I often tell my patients, think about what urge number or level this is. And if this is a level 1 urge of like, hey, I probably could go to the bathroom, then think about when's the last time you went to the bathroom. And if it's been, 30 minutes or an hour, it's unlikely that you need to empty your bladder. It takes at least 2 hours for our bladder to fill to a capacity that warrants emptying. And so if we can think about, okay, it's been an hour since I last went pee. I didn't chug a bunch of water in the last hour. I probably could keep going about my business and hold it for a little bit longer. On the offhand, if you and this is very common with nurses, teachers, people who don't readily have access to the bathroom, is that urge will come and then go, and then come and then go. And then they're having significant urge and either urinary leakage associated with the strong urge. So going longer than 4 hours is also not great for our bladder. And being able to keep track of what number urge is this, when is the last time I went pee, and potentially how much water did you drink in between those time frames can be easy ways to know whether or not you actually have to go to the bathroom. And so again, those 2 to 4 hour time frames, you shouldn't be peeing sooner than 2 hours, and you shouldn't be waiting longer than 4 hours to pee. And with water in that realm of things, sipping on water throughout the day. So in a given hour time frame, it's normal to sip on about 8 ounces of water. Oftentimes we get people who don't do a great job of drinking water in the first half of the day, and then they're really thirsty at the end of the day, so they're chugging all their water from like 4 to 8 p.m., and then that can lead to increased urinary frequency at the end of the day or at night. So number 2, things that you can be doing at night to help decrease the amount of times that you're waking up to pee in the middle of the night, which again, very common for all ages if we're not doing this correctly, is stopping liquids 2 hours before bedtime. For most people of a younger age, it's not a huge concern, but if we're looking at those over the age of 50 or post-menopause, and definitely over the age of 65, stopping liquids 2 hours before bedtime is a huge help to minimize waking up to pee at night. For anyone under the age of 65, waking up to pee at night 0 to 1 time a night is normal, which for some people is like, oh yeah, that's fine, I don't wake up to pee. But for some people, they're waking up 3 or 4 times a night, which is absolutely abnormal if you're under the age of 65. So not backloading your day with water can be helpful for both making sure you have normal voiding times, but also getting good quality sleep, which can be a huge struggle with any perimenopause, postmenopause population, or someone who's waking up at night to breastfeed, all the things, right? Quality sleep is really important for all aspects of our health. If we're looking at easy things to do with bowel habits, and this has been super popular over the last few years, is using a squatty potty. And it's not just fluff. When we think about modern toilets, a lot of our toilets are way too tall, and using a stool or something to elevate the height of your feet when you're going to have a bowel movement can be significantly helpful for reducing straining, hemorrhoids, all the things that are associated with, increased intra-abdominal pressure and trying to pass a bowel movement that is either not the right quality or size, and can make a slew of other things a problem for our bladder system also. So if we're not straining, we're doing lots of good things for our bladder, our rectal wall, our abdomen. So my funny little phrase that I use with all of my patients is moo when you poo. If you can't physically exhale or talk, then you're straining, and try again.
I love all of this. I'm like taking so many notes, learned so much already. And it's good to have this information rather not that just, well, it might be a problem or it might not. Thank you for all the specifics. And I've heard a lot about the squatty potty. So it's like can you explain it for those people who don't know what that is?
Yeah. So I'm not actually sure who designed the squatty potty, but it's a stool that easily wraps around your toilet. So if you're not using it, you can push it out of the way and it just kind of tucks behind your toilet. If you are using it, it's wide enough that allows your feet to be in a wide stance, and puts your knees higher than your hips so that it mimics a deep squat position, which is good for our anal rectal angle. If we think about tall toilets, our anal rectal angle can look more like a 90 degree. So when we're on a squatty potty, that increases the anal rectal angle so that your poop kind of goes out more like a straight chute, and it doesn't have to do like a full 90-degree turn, which then gives us our type 4 bowel movement that we're striving for, which is soft, S-shaped, easy to pass, skinny, not large, not hard, not small deer pebbles. So a Bristol stool chart can be something people look up, and type 3-4 bowel movements are normal bowel movements on that scale.
And once again, I love that we are talking about things on these episodes that not everybody is talking about. And I love the expertise, because if you're too embarrassed to bring it up or you don't know, we're here to put resources in front of you and make it easy to find them. So thank you so much for helping our listener better understand when we're talking about all things body functioning today.
Well, and that even leads into, so like the design of the squatty potty is so that your feet can be really wide. And when we think about either pregnancy, postmenopause, anyone with a prolapse, a pelvic organ prolapse, so a cystocele, a rectocele, having a really wide stance while you're peeing is really important. Even people who complain of, man, when I pee, it sprays my legs, or I get dribbling after my stream ends. Having your legs wide while you pee allows, especially for females, allows your labia to separate so that your urethra has a clear shot to the toilet. But also, if your legs are wide and you're leaning forward slightly while you're peeing, your pubic bone naturally puts pressure against your bladder and makes it easier to empty. And some symptoms that I get for people coming in is difficulty fully emptying their bladder or initiating voiding. And so, yes, it's good for bowel movements, but it's also really helpful for just more efficient bladder emptying.
The squatty potty is good for both of those, which I've heard of the squatty potty. I think it's been on Shark Tank or something like that, but I had no idea that it could also be beneficial for voiding completely. So thanks for that.
This is so interesting. I'm like learning so much. And you mentioned a few things, but and also because we're in this series about menopause and women's health, can you speak to that a little bit more in terms of anything in particular that we need to pay attention to during menopause?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I see a large population of women who come to me post-menopause after having kids or not, and a large complaint of recurrent UTIs, vaginal pressure or heaviness with prolonged standing or throughout the day, decreased time frame between I had to pee and I peed my pants, like there was no warning whatsoever, or decreased comfort with intercourse, pain with intercourse, and all of these things that I've found with working with these patients can be made drastically better with. And there's lots more studies coming out that refute a former study years ago that said estrogen was horrible. Is that topical vaginal estrogen and or hormone replacement therapy, low dose estrogen, can be wildly helpful for reducing UTIs, improving elasticity and urethral closure, so improved bladder continence, decreased urinary frequency, improved sexual health, decreased vaginal dryness, burning, irritation, all the above. And so for patients who are maybe in their early 40s, mid 40s, who are starting that perimenopause state, excellent. If you do some blood tests and talk with your doctor of, am I an appropriate candidate for hormone replacement therapy? And then for the postmenopause group, someone who's maybe over the age of 55, over 60, doing topical vaginal estrogen. If we think about, we put sunscreen on our arms, our legs, our face, and we we need estrogen the same way in our vaginal tissues to help prevent against loss of estrogen. There's atrophic vaginitis, lichen sclerosis. There's a handful of things, yeast infections, UTIs, that with topical vaginal estrogen can be extremely helpful for patient comfort and sexual function, bladder function. And it often is. I think now it's better. There's a lot of doctors that are much more aware of the benefits of that, but I also think that there's still well, you don't need that, you're too old, or you don't need that, you're too young, right? So I think I've been able to help a lot of patients in this kind of middle way of like, hey, let's talk to your doctor and see if this would be helpful. And it can be pretty life-changing.
And I know that Dr. O'Sullivan in episode 66 talked about that specifically, about having to undo I don't want to say damage, but undo the information that was out there from an older study about hormone replacement when all the women got it taken away, it seems like. And now it's like, no, actually, it's much safer than people thought, and really putting more women on hormone replacement therapy. And I would say, even as I'm a cancer survivor, breast cancer, and so anti-estrogen therapy was one of my treatments, kind of decreasing as much estrogen as possible. And not everybody knows about the topical estrogen and keeping those tissues healthy. So I totally appreciate you sharing that. And again, I would say, if you're not getting the expertise and knowledge that you need to address your symptoms, advocate for yourself and find that expert that's going to help support you. This has been super helpful. And Kirsten, as we talk about on this podcast, the name is Create Meaning in Medicine, Rewriting the Rules for Women Physicians or Women in Medicine. I'm wondering, for you, are there areas where you are rewriting the rules in medicine?
I think, I love that that's your guys' podcasting, because I think our job as healthcare providers is to change how our patients think about medicine, change how you leave the medical field, right? That you hopefully leave it in a better place. And I think specifically for a group of women that I work with who are often scared, often embarrassed, being able to give them confidence that these are important questions to be asking, that knowing, yes, this is common, but this is not normal. And just even increasing the confidence of interdisciplinary communication, like not being afraid to talk to your doctor about what your pelvic floor therapist is working on, and vice versa. Because if we can all work as a team, we're less likely to have things go unmissed or unnoticed. Specifically, for example, I work with a lot of postpartum patients, and in our little realm of talking about estrogen, pain with vaginal insertion postpartum can be due to perineal tearing. It can be due to estrogen loss locally in our vaginal tissues from breastfeeding. And being able to be the person that's doing a pelvic exam on these women, because a lot of women don't get a pelvic exam at your 6-week postpartum appointment, especially if there's not a specific pain complaint, right? Or like, well, how are things going? And so being able to bridge the gap between, hey, this is what I'm seeing of what your vaginal tissues look like. This is what I'm hearing is a complaint. Why don't we talk to your doctor about trying this and see how it goes? And that, I think, has been really helpful for women who are often lost and overly tired and a whole slew of brain fog, to have somebody kind of help them, hold their hand, and not put all the load on them to help themselves get better. And so I think rewriting the rules of PTs can be really good communicators for you, and or finding meaning in that women, even though we are strong, we need help, and help from other women can be one of the best things that I can do as a PT. But I also think women who are in a dark time postpartum or postmenopause, feeling like another woman is there to help them and not bring them down is important.
I am loving this conversation. I could talk with you so much. Again, so many notes here, and I cannot wait to share this information. And I love how you brought it up as a way to improve the quality of our lives. And so often, especially as professional women, we wait until we have a big problem before we ask for help or we seek assistance. And thank you for mentioning so clearly these are common problems, but they're not normal. And yes, you can define it as such and get help and ask the right questions and do what you need to do to take care of your own health. So it's so important. And in the wide range of age, I should say, that it's not just an kind of like I'll say it in how we hear it, that it's like, no, I'm not old enough for that. Or if I'm having a problem, I should not say anything because I'm not supposed to have that. And I love how you said it, like the myths, because that's one of the things that we do in this podcast of talking about, like Erin was saying, talking about things that we normally don't talk about, and the myths around bladder and bowel, right? Like, who wants to talk about that? Well, we do, because it's important. So thank you. And the particular changes around menopause, we've been talking about it so much in this series, and a lot of times we stay quiet, and like you mentioned, we suffer in silence, and how many problems we can avoid, and pain. You shouldn't be having pain. So again, I could go on and on. This has been so helpful. And tell us, where can we find you? Where can we hear more?
I am a physical therapist at an outpatient orthopedic practice in Salem, Oregon, South Salem, at Therapeutic Associates. And we also have our website is Therapeutic Associates Incorporated. And so you can reach out or ask for an appointment. I'm always available via email too. And other than that, I think there are amazing pelvic floor podcasts and online resources for women, especially if access to care is limited, which I'm not online. I don't do my own podcast, but I would be more than happy to provide some highlights of other places that are providing good care as well.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for being our special guest. And stay tuned. Our next episode is coming right up.
Do you want exclusive resources and the opportunity to connect with us? Then visit createmeaninginmedicine.com now, where you'll dive deeper into how you can create meaning in medicine. And if you're serious about optimizing your results, take 2 quick steps now. Connect with us on the website and tune in to the next episode.